Okay, in this video we're going to try and put lots of different balls on the screen, and I'm going to start changing my code a little bit, so you need to really pay attention to where I'm changing my code. So the first thing I'm going to do, and again I'm not going to explain too much about it, I'll try to make some comments, but I won't go into massive programming detail. What I really want to do is, instead of saying or passing X and Y, I just need one thing called a position. And when I start my ball dropping, that's the initial position where it starts on the screen. Then it's going to change its value later. But I'm going to have a new variable called initial position. And this is going to be a new data type called a record. So we've had arrays, integers, strings. Now we've got a record. So this is going to contain two things. It's going to contain an X, and at the moment we don't know what that's going to be, so I'm going to call it undefined, and we need a comma at the end of it, and I need a Y, which is also going to be undefined, and I use a colon to separate the Y and the undefined. So that's set up a new kind of data type. So what I need to do is amend my program now to take this into account. It's just easier for me to code this way. You will do this a lot when you're coding. You'll change the kind of data types you're looking at. So everywhere where I used a sort of X and Y, I need to change. So here's my first one. I need to change that for initial position. Notice I was passing in two things. Now I'm just passing in one. I don't need both of these at the moment. I need to edit it. So I'm going to say that this has got a position and its X value. Well, this is going to be again a record where the X value is going to be the initial position that we passed in. Whoops, it's X item and a comma at the end, and Y value is going to be the same thing, initial position dot Y. We'll be using this kind of thing over and over again, particularly when we start changing the speeds of the balls that appear on the screen and how they bounce. This is a much better way complicated, and is, to be fair. So that's set that one up. The problem that I've now got is that there is no this dot Y, it's all this dot position, so I've got to change everywhere where that occurs, and it occurs here in the update function, but all I need to do now is change that for position dot. So this dot position dot Y is that, and we do the same here. All I need to do is put position dot there and position dot there, and that's edited my program to take into account what I've just done. However, I've still got one or two edits to make in my program, which I shall do shortly. So let me just scroll down. Now the purpose of this is so that I can have a lot of balls on the screen rather than just one. And like the colours here, I had a list of them. That was my this is a list, and although that's called the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one, sixth one, we actually start at 0. So I say that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even though I've got 6 of them. And that's going to be sort of important as I program through. So I need to set up a variable now to have how many particles. So I'm going to say maximum particles on the screen is going to be equal to 10. So that's the maximum value that I'm going to have, and I'm going to use this now inside my in it. So what happened here was that I set up a random screen position, a random radius, a random color, and I put the particle or set the particle up, and then I put it on the screen. We don't need that one either. Let's get rid of that. And then I put it on the screen. But that was only for one. If I wanted a second particle, I'd have to do all of this again and then say P2. It would get very, very messy. So I need a different way of doing it. And the way I do it is with a loop and a special kind of loop called a counting loop. But first of all, let's just change this. Remember, we don't want X and Y anymore. That needs to be called initial position dot X, and that one needs to be called initial position dot Y, and that, instead of passing two things in, I now just pass in the initial position. So there's a couple of changes that I've made, and now I'm going to start working on my loop. Now I want a random number of balls up to the maximum amount, 10. So I'm going to set a variable called number of particles, and I'm going to do the same as I've done here. In fact, let me just copy it, Control C that, and Control V that. Random int from range, saves me typing. Now I don't want 0 this time, I want 1, because I want at least one particle on the screen, and the most particles I want on the screen is max particles. So it's going to be anywhere between 1 and 10 particles on the screen. So that's good. And now I need to set up a sort of list to hold the number of particles that I've got. And I'm going to call that particle array. And to begin with, I'm going to say it's empty. In other words, I'm just going to use two square brackets with nothing inside. And I'm going to put things inside later. Now, I need a loop to keep going through to put things into here. So what's going to happen is that that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, but I'm adding those things in programmatically. So let me start my loop. So 4 is the loop I need. Round brackets, I'm going to say I want a variable I, we call these counters, and I'm going to set that to 0 to begin with, and then a semicolon. So it's going to start off at 0. So what I'm trying to do here is sort of go 0, 1, 2, 3, and if I got maximum amount of particles, that would go all the way up to 9. So although I've got 10 particles, I'm starting here at 0. So 10 particles, if you count these 0 to 9, there would be 10 of them. So I need to say that my I is going to start at 0, and it's going to go on as far as max particles. Oops, I can't spell. So as long as it's less than max particles, so it's going to stop when the I reaches 10, and that little thing there, the semicolon with the I plus plus, means every time through the loop, every time I go through, make I bigger. So it's going to start at 0, then it's going to go to 1, then it's going to go to 2, then it's going to go to 3, and all the way up. When it reaches 10, it's going to fail because max particles is it's got to be less than max particles. So open and close curly brackets, but I want to put all of these things inside these curly brackets. So I'm going to delete that end curly bracket, go right to the end of this function and put one in. Make sure that when you do that, that these two things here are red and that it's not red somewhere else. And what you can do then is highlight everything inside and press the tab key to indent it. So at the moment everything's fine. I want that line, I want that line, I want that line, I want that line, but I'm going to change the way that I do my particle. Like I said, P1 here. I'm not going to do it in that fashion. I'm going to push things into this sort of square bracket here. So this one is called particle array. So instead of P1, I'm going to say my particle array. I'm going to push. This is like pushing somebody into a room, I suppose. I'm going to push something in, and what I'm going to push in, so I've got rid of my equal sign, and I'm pulling back that new because I'm going to put a round bracket there, and at the end I'm going to put another round bracket there. Now make sure that the round bracket is red after the push and the end, but you've got these two, so when I click on the next one it's around initial position and radius, and that is it. That now pushes or makes up my particle array. However, I'm no longer using P1, so I've got to change what I do here, and this is my animation. If you remember, it's going to animate each time, but I need to find out how many balls or how many particles I was putting on and update each one of those particles. So again, well, let me just do this. Really what I would need to do is particle, oops, can't spell, particle array update. Don't type it just yet, because I actually need a loop similar to this, because I need to go through all of the items in my particle array. So let's do that. I need a loop, the same kind of loop as I've got here. I'm just going to make one small change. So I need a variable to keep looping, and I need to set it to begin with, and then I need to say how far it needs to go up. Now this time, instead of saying max particles, I'm going to choose how long this is. So it's going to be a different length depending on the number of particles I did. So I can just do particle array dot length semicolon, and then again increment my I and put the curly braces on the end. So I'm going to get rid of that end one and put that down there, and I'm going to indent that by pressing the tab key, but that's not good enough because at the moment that's just saying particle array update. I need to know which particular ball in there, and I need a square bracket with the ball number or the particle number in square brackets, and that will do the job. So now I should have as many particles as I like on the screen. So let's check it out. Go to index, you should reload. I'm going to launch this in Chrome, and we'll see. Remember, we only need to click on the actual browser now when it pops up. There we go, it had loads more balls dropping that time. So if I click on the browser, there we go. Any number between 1 and 10 if you can count them quickly. Okay, all different colours, all different sizes, pretty good. Really, we need to start thinking about not letting them go off the bottom of the screen, letting them bounce around the screen and off one another. We've still got a fair amount of work to do, but that's quite a good start, and it's quite interesting. If you wanted to, you can go back to your code and just change this. Maximum particles now, I want 100. So save it, go back to your browser, reload it, and there we go, we got up to 100 particles every time I press the screen. Oops, I need to reload that. There we go. Lots of particles. You might want to change it, see how many you can do. But that's the end of this one. Next lesson we will start thinking about making those balls go off in different directions to one another and bouncing off the sides.